Hey, welcome to Downloaded. This is the show where we gather the most opinionated voices in the tech field today, focus all that energy on all the stories impacting the tech world. I'm your host, Jim Lauterbach. Really excited to have Mark Milian here from Bloomberg. Thank you very much for coming over.
Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you. And back, Mike Isaac from All Things D. Great to see you too.
What's up?
Look, let's jump right into it because I am in mourning today. And I'm in mourning, actually I'm going to be in mourning on July 1st because they're killing off one of my favorite things at Google. Google Reader is dead. And I've been using, and you can look at this on the screen, I've been using Feed Daemon, which is this amazing, it's way before Google Reader, but it captures it all, it uses Google Reader as its engine. It's not going to be developed anymore. There are other sources. Mike, I'm pissed. Are you pissed?
So here's a question. How avid of a Twitter user are you? Because right now, like, I'm not feeling this sort of pain and shock that everyone else is because I get a lot of I basically used the curation of RSS. I've transferred that to curating my Twitter list, and I get like all of my information in through.
Yeah, I guess I haven't made the migration to that. I use Twitter, I use it a lot, but to
Yeah.
me, Twitter is just this amorphous mass of some stuff's good, some stuff's not. Like when I go to my feed reader, and I want to just find out about whether Aaron Hernandez has been arrested or not, I go right to my sports section.
Yep.
When I want to find out what All Things D is talking about on tech, I go to the All Things D section. I don't know, am I blowing this out of proportion, Mark?
My habits are a lot like Mike as well. I use Twitter a lot to discover news. Bloomberg is very email based, so I get a lot of news alerts through my emails. So I've found myself visiting my Google Reader account less and less these days, but a lot of my feeds in Flipboard were based on my Google Reader feeds. And it is kind of like the framework for a lot of the services that we use, and you don't really realize that until it's gone, which we'll see this week.
Which is going to be really sad. So if you are also a Google Reader or use any of these other sources, are there any good options out there? Mike, Mark, options, what do you think?
So I think the ones that I'm paying attention to but are like sort of TBD is like there's this Dig Reader that just came out. Apparently it's like very pretty. Matt Honan at Wired did a big piece on it, and it's not like fully there yet. It's not fully developed, and I haven't played around with it yet, but it's very promising. That's what everyone I've heard talking about it. So I think that is interesting. Facebook also is reportedly, a colleague at the Journal reported that Facebook is working on a reader of its own as well, which would be conceptually interesting just because it's like friend-based. Again, friend-based, you care about who you're friends with, and they might have sort of suggestions there. So honestly, man, I'm like big on stuff that's curated and aggregated for me, like I feel like that's the direction.
You don't want to do the work yourself.
Let
other people do the work for you.
And that's why everyone's like freaking out because they've done all this work for such a long time.
Well, I have this great curated list of feeds that I curated.
Yeah.
Mark, what about you? Any other services you can pass on to people who might be addicted and just can't let go?
Flipboard's a nice experience. It's not as hardcore, I think.
What's Flipboard going to use for its feeds from now?
Well, with the latest version, you hook up, if you have your Google Reader account hooked up to Flipboard, it will pull in all of those feeds
and then it'll go directly,
and aggregate them directly through the RSS feed rather than using Google Reader as
you know who's also interestingly that I've started to play around with a little bit, who's also building a back-end engine like what Google Reader had is Feedly. So I put Feedly up here. It's I don't think there's a desktop version. Maybe there's a Chrome version that I can load up, but that's another interesting option. I don't know, it's the trouble with free services, right?
We should have a drink to the memory of Google
Reader.
All
right. To the memory
Pour one out for your
Google
homies.
Reader. Cheers.
Toasting with water, that's all right.
You can just say it's vodka.
All right, well, I've gotten over my morning. Let's go on to our next story. Let's talk about Windows. We're not going to toast to the end of Windows yet, but Windows 8.1 coming out. A lot of features people are asking for. Things like, oh yeah, the start button. We kind of forgot about that, didn't we? And a bunch of other things. Fixing search. Mike, is this too little, too late, or is there something really good here for users?
So I keep asking you questions, but like,
no, you can ask me.
So do you use Windows? What do you use primarily?
I am the last Windows user. I'm the last Windows user in San Francisco.
You have the ThinkPad.
I got a ThinkPad here.
Oh, you do? Yeah, of course you do.
I've tried Windows 8, and I do not like it.
You don't like it?
I don't like it because there's no start button. It has
These are things you actually wanted.
Right. Well, and I like having. Look. Can you go back to my computer again? I don't know if you can see how many stupid windows I have open, but even all these logos down here. I love overlapping windows and having things and making a big mess on my desktop.
Yep.
Windows 8.1 is just too, it just constrains me. It's like, if I want a tablet, I'll buy a tablet. And by the way, it'll be iPhone or it'll be Apple or Android. So
there you go. I'm living Apple's little world now. I have for a little while. I'm fine with it, I guess. I think I'm more of a power user than, the mass of people. And I think Microsoft is sort of like, they are buying into the philosophy that it is sort of like an app. We're moving towards this appified world, right? People just want these sort of like, okay, I'll click on a tile. This is a new interface right? I don't know.
But everybody's sort of going in that direction. You look at what Google's pushing with Chromebooks. It's just the browser with tabs. You look at the direction that Apple's going in with Mac OS. They're pushing these full screen apps, which is the same sort of thing that you get with Windows. They're putting a lot of efforts into streamlining and sort of taking away the clutter. I guess they see that as a way to potentially open up computers to a larger audience and make people feel more comfortable using them.
I agree with you on the power user stuff, and I think these new changes for Windows means I might use it. But I tell you, with Reader and with this is what you guys are starting to make me feel like. Starting to make me feel like a dinosaur here. This is, by the way, shameless plug time. We just launched Discovery Dinosaurs. So if you go to youtube.com/Discovery Dinosaurs, you can see hours and hours of this
you have a dinosaur
CGI
show?
dinosaur stuff. We have a new dinosaur show.
I
It's actually all the old dinosaur
watch
footage
that.
from the Discovery Library with sort of spacey music underneath it that runs on for hours. So there.
I was a big Land of the Lost fan, if you ever remember that.
Exactly. Walking with Dinosaurs, Land of the Lost, all that stuff. You can get it all there. I think it's a good question, though. Is Windows, Mark, is Windows a dinosaur?
It's got the legacy. It's got legacy code. It's got sort of legacy reputations. I think the fact that Microsoft had to bow down and add a start button to appease some of the old-time users, which in itself I think was just bizarre because people weren't asking for a start button. They wanted a start menu. You're missing the utility with the start button of.
Well, the trouble is, look, when I used Windows, is you would load it up and there was nowhere to go to get to the things you wanted to do. You would launch it, you would install an app, and it would just stick all the apps on what they called their start page. And there was no way to be like, no, I only want those things there. And now they actually changed this. So now you can have a curated list on your start page of the apps you want. You can load more than like 2 or 3 apps at a time. I think they went too far too fast. But that brings up a more interesting question also. I thought the idea of having a single interface and a single OS for everything from the small smartphone to the biggest smart TV or whatever, which they tried to do, made sense. Now I'm not so sure. What do you think?
It's funny because like the predictions for Apple in the next OS X version, I guess, is that it's going to sort of like, you already see this sort of convergence of iOS and OS X, right? And so like it's slowly happening and people are going to say like this is pushing it forward, this is going to happen more and more. I think that Microsoft sort of is subscribing to that philosophy for some, for whatever reason, they think that's the direction. But like, I don't know, I haven't used Windows in a while, but I do remember when I did, I liked the ability to dig around and mess with things, and it felt more. It's kind of like the Android versus Apple debate,
well,
right?
That's why I prefer Android mostly for tablets, because I like getting in there and being able to do things. Like, don't lock me into your way of the world. Let me customize. But let's move on to the Ouya, because this is really interesting. So Ars Technica, a bunch of people covering this as well. This is the Ouya console. They actually started selling it in stores before they gave it to all their Kickstarter people. That's a problem.
That's weird. That's like antithetical to Kickstarter ethos, right? Like you donate and you get it first.
Can I get the first one?
Maybe they realized this was a bigger thing than just like the Kickstarter crowd, and so we needed to get it on store shelves like right off the bat.
Yeah, Mark, is this thing legit?
I mean, there have been a lot of these sort of copycats, just like there have been a lot of smartwatches, many of them on Kickstarter. But this is the one standout, and this is the one that seems to be proving that there's a market for this. I think a lot of the users are like you in that they want something that's very customizable. I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot of media center features on the Ouya, more to come. And the ability to to get your Android games onto the screen, I think there's a big market for that. Just like Apple TV has proved that there's a growing market for people who want to take their iPad games and see them on the big screen while they're
You know
playing.
what this reminds me of, actually, now that you talk about it? Remember back in the GameCube days, when Nintendo had the GameCube, they built this thing you could bolt onto the bottom to let you play your Game Boy games on it.
Totally remember
And
that.
actually, I thought that was pretty cool. I played some Zelda games on it, but it ended up not really doing it. Is this the same thing? People want to play phone games on their big screen, Mike?
Well, you know what I thought was always fun, or was cool, at least for a little while, is when I did use Windows, I would load these emulators up and play
Yeah.
these old school,
Right.
NES games or whatever, Super Nintendo games on my computer, and I thought that was really fun. So maybe it's just sort of like taking that philosophy and shifting it over to the TV. Now, is that like a business that people actually want to do for a long time? I don't know. I mean, I'm content with my Xbox right now. It's pretty much like an app portal, a media portal, a games portal, sort of. I'm good there.
All right,
So
well,
I'm
is there room in your living room for another box?
I don't know. What we basically want is like everything molded into this one box. We don't want to just like stick another one on there. So
Yeah, that's why the Xbox one box to rule us all,
Yeah.
one box to bind us. How about, Mark, in your living room, is there room for another box?
Definitely not in my living room. I've got the 3 game consoles from last generation. I'm probably going to get an Xbox One or a PS4. I haven't
Yeah.
decided yet. But on the one hand, with the Ouya, I think there potentially is a market for the low end. It's priced with the Xbox 5 at $500, or the Xbox One at $500. The Ouya looks pretty attractive at a low price. The games are going to be cheaper. I think the Wii last generation proved that you don't need to be the ultra high end to
Right.
be the winning game console in the beginning. And so, yeah, I think the Ouya has a shot.
Yeah, what do you think about, one of the cool features I actually liked is that all the games are all try before you buy. You think that is a really good way to go? You think that's going to influence the other consoles, Mark?
I think we're increasingly seeing that on the other consoles. You can download demos from the game stores and sort of get either a 1-hour trial or 1 or 2 levels to check out. I think we'll probably see more robust features in the download stores from the existing consoles because they have to. One of the things we're seeing from Nintendo, which is a huge shift, is that they're opening up the Wii U to outside developers to basically create an app store on the Wii U.
forgot about that.
They're having trouble getting the blockbuster games developed by EA and Activision for their console, so they're going the Apple route. And I think we're going to be seeing that from Xbox, Sony, and Ouya is going to be pioneering that with direct to Android.
You know what I think is amazing is that they did a really good job. I haven't used it yet, maybe you guys have, but the controller actually feels really good. It's a strong, solid controller.
They got some serious designers.
Yeah,
that they sign on.
but 2 controllers, price of 1 unit. Isn't it amazing? The price of a game console is now the price of 2 extra controllers for the game console.
That's what I get you.
I just think it's not so much that. It's just that it's so cheap. It feels to me though that like if you could take the Roku and the Ouya and kind of merge them together into one box, that'd be really cool.
Right.
But you were talking about media. One of you guys were talking about adding media center capabilities to it. Is that on the roadmap? Is that going to happen? You think?
Yeah, I definitely do think so. I've talked to some of the internet media companies that say that they're looking at it, and I don't think it'll be too long before we see all the major services like Hulu, Netflix, Vudu all offering apps, and we'll see more advanced media services where you can stream
Actually,
from other sites and feed your own.
It's just
videos.
Android. We should be putting our apps on it. It's our Android. They should. All right. Make a note. Gotta work on
Take
that.
note. Well, it'd be
wait a minute.
interesting.
All right. Let's get back to work here.
Yes.
So, one of your coworkers at the Wall Street Journal broke the story, Amir, about Google building an Android game console.
Yep.
How is this, Mike? How's this going to be? Tell me about this. But how's this going to be different from the Ouya?
So I think that if you remember from I/O, I think it was a year ago, they debuted this device called the Nexus Q, which was supposed to. It was this beautiful
It was a total
orb,
failure,
black
right?
thing. They didn't even release it. They
Yeah.
didn't even release it. It was so much. So, but what it essentially does, it was a music player in that you could use Google Music and play that inside of your living room, and it's like, okay, you can stream. But A, no one really uses Google Music. B, it didn't do, like, why buy it was really expensive, why buy another like device that has limited capabilities that basically can't do what your Xbox can do or something like that. So I think from what Amir's story said, I think this is essentially like we're gonna try to reboot Q, but actually make it what it should have been, which is a full-fledged sort of media device. Again, I mean, Android has the Android wing has done a ton of these different sort of like, oh, we're gonna try Google TV or we're gonna do this, and they just haven't really taken off. So I don't know if they just have, and they also don't have like the greatest relationships with all the media
OEMs,
companies,
you know, the media companies too, right? Exactly, yeah.
You know, increasingly they do with music. They're signing deals.
They're starting to get
favorable offers to the music labels to get.
Well,
them
through
to sign
YouTube,
on.
they've got a lot of stuff going on there as well.
Yes,
so.
the video companies.
Yeah, interesting. And then, Mark, they also said that they're working on a watch too, right?
Yeah, in that Wall Street Journal story, they said they're also working on a smartwatch, which who's not working on a smartwatch these days? Sony. Just
I don't notice either of you actually wearing a watch at all, though.
I don't wear watch. I haven't worn a watch in a long time.
Because I'm a dinosaur, I have a watch.
But yours doesn't show text messages.
No, it doesn't. It tells me what time it is.
Have you used the Pebble at all?
I haven't. We had a guy in here 2 weeks ago with a Pebble. It looks really cool.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not sure. It reminds me like when digital watches first came out. You guys don't remember, but it was like the total fad, and everybody wore them, and then all of a sudden everyone woke up and said, "That's like the ugliest thing in the world. Why am I wearing that on my wrist?" So I wonder if we're going to see the same thing happen here.
I just want a calculator on my watch.
Yeah,
that's what I
old
miss.
school Casio.
Yeah.
Well, it was the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I think, made particular fun of digital wristwatches, if you remember, and that was why, because it was a fad and then it was stupid. So we'll see what happens with Google, with Android, and all that. Another big thing going on in news: Pandora getting a little bit of back and forth with a couple of other dinosaurs in the music industry. Pink Floyd. The guys from Pink Floyd and USA Today kind of going all over, you're ripping us off, man. You're running all our music and you want to cut it down 85%. This is terrible. And then there's another story about some guy who was like, my song got played 1 million times. I only made $1. Turns out he made a lot more than that. He was wrong. But is there a problem with this new music distribution model, or is this just to be expected? And I don't know. Mark, let's start with you, and then Mike, give me your take.
Sure.
This was kind of the standard music sort of rallying cry that we've seen for at least a decade.
Yeah.
We saw something similar in the Napster days, where the music industry enlisted Metallica to be their
right. Their poster child or whatever.
Exactly.
Poster
Yeah, Lars
dinosaur.
Ulrich, going nuts, saying the Napsters ripping them off, and they were. But in the case of Pandora, I think it's a little bit of a stretch to Tim Westergren, the founder of Pandora, wrote this screed on Pandora's website.
That's right. I have that right over here.
Responding to some of the allegations that the Pink Floyd frontman made in I think it was the Washington Post.
He needs an editor, by the way. There's a lot of words on this page.
He's not as bad as Sean Parker.
Yeah, Sean Parker's a wordy guy.
But it's that 85%. It's they're going out. They're going to cut the royalties by 85%. And then Tim Wenham said, we're not cutting the royalties by 85%. We're doing this. And by the way, if you get a million listens, you make $1,370, which actually doesn't seem like a lot, but I mean that's something, right, Mike? What do you think? What's your take on all this?
I feel like this is a battle they've been sort of like fighting for a long time, and the other sort of services out there, Spotify has gone through similar sort of attacks on how much they have to pay in royalties, and same with Rdio. But I feel like the battle now is really like, Apple just launched its own radio service, right? Like Pandora's lunch is potentially about to get eaten by like this company who already has strong-armed these labels into sort of working with them and getting better. I believe they get better sort of deals for giving royalties to artists. So I don't know. I feel like that's really where they need to start freaking out a little bit.
So you think that Apple's music service is a real challenge to Pandora?
I think that's where everyone sort of already is with their music libraries, right? So it's like, okay, if I don't have to go and subscribe, or if I don't have to go to this outside service and can roll it all into this, existing network that I already have, I think it's convenient. Now, that said, Apple tried Ping too, and that was a total flop.
Yeah.
And not just because you're a huge company doesn't mean everything you launch is going to kill everyone else. So.
Mark, what do you think about Pandora versus Apple? It's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I mean, Apple, like Mike said, it does have a huge user base in people who are, opening up the music app, and maybe they'll see the radio icon and want to check it out. But you also have to consider that Apple's not going to offer iTunes Radio on Android. It's probably
on
not.
Fords and all your cars, right? I think it's a really good point,
It's
right?
probably not going to, have a website version of it that you can access from your work desktop, where a lot of people listen to Pandora's website. So Pandora's, across all platforms model. It's also on a lot of TV set-top boxes.
Yeah.
Right, it's on the Roku, it's on a lot of things. They're a lot like Netflix in that way, right?
Yeah, I mean, you want radio to be everywhere, right? You don't want it to, have to switch platforms, especially when it's customized like Pandora and iTunes are, where you want to, the more you use it, the better your recommendations are. I think, Pandora has already locked in a lot of people who are saying, Pandora is really good. They've been doing this for a decade.
Well, that's the thing. They've been doing that music genome thing for so long and doing that recommendation stuff. I mean, they've got this built-in set of experience. So, Mike, I don't know. I think Apple's got a real big road to climb there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they can't, honestly, they can't just go in overnight and say, you're going to die. But I think that, I don't know. I mean, everyone starts sweating when Apple starts playing in your pool, and they can stick that app or whatever, onto the home screen of a billion or however many hundreds of millions of iPhones they've sold so far, right? And that's good real estate.
Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, they own a lot of people's hearts and minds. I thought another sort of Netflixy thing, Spotify is doing. So Spotify, just like Netflix did with House of Cards, Spotify going out and saying, hey, we're going to make our own content, right? You like our service? We're going to do our own original content. They announced this in New York this week. What do you think about Spotify's? And they're not. I don't think they're going to go out and start, backing their own bands and become a record label. I think it's more around doing live performances, a little bit like what SiriusXM does. But do you buy this as a differentiation point, Mike?
I think it's smart, actually. You know what I was thinking about when the Daft Punk album came out, and Apple is doing this very smart thing, working with a band to stream these albums live for free for 24, 48 hours or something like that. So it's oh God, okay, if I can go to iTunes and listen to it for free, then I might as well stick around and buy it, something like that. So what is the draw for me to come to Spotify and do a similar thing? Is there going to be exclusive live performances just with Spotify instead of a live performance with iTunes or Apple or something like that? So if you have these hardcore fans that want this extra component, a live show component or something to it, maybe you do a live streaming show too through Spotify. That would be interesting.
Well, take it one step further, and Mark, I don't know if this is possible, but I started thinking about this. I mean, what if Pandora just signed up Arcade Fire? Or signed up the National and said, you can buy their music, but you can only listen to it digitally by coming to our service. Is that viable, or am I just a dinosaur?
That would be a bold move.
That's the theme today, by the way.
The dinosaurs.
That would be a bold move, and I don't think that would come all that costly nowadays with the way that the music label contracts are structured.
Yeah.
For a company that's raised tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, signing a band is not the most insane way to spend their money.
Yeah, and I think getting exclusive content, it's interesting. It does take these music services and make them more like the TV services we're seeing, like Amazon and Netflix and Hulu even, rolling that stuff up, right?
Its own shows.
Really interesting. Hey, we're going to get to Hulu in a lightning round, but I'm going to talk about it now since I just brought it up. What do you think? I'm just going to throw it out there. Mark, Hulu. What do you think? Who's going to buy it? Is there anything there? Because the bids are due, right?
Yeah, who is going to buy this?
DirecTV? Really?
Hey.
No, what do you think?
A lot of companies have shown interest. I think Yahoo was one of the ones that have taken a look at this, and Marissa Mayer already made her bold bet on Tumblr. So that would lead me to think that maybe a Hulu purchase is out the window at this point. But yeah, I'm not really sure who's going to pick it up.
Mike, is Hulu a dinosaur?
Hulu's totally dead. No. Hulu's funny because my colleague Peter Kafka covers this stuff way better than I.
Yeah, I know. I've been reading Peter's coverage. He's great.
Yeah, he's fantastic. But they've been on the block for a long time, right? And News Corp can't decide, or all the partners can't decide what they necessarily want to do with it. They've had like a CEO. The CEO has been, you know,
CEO's
he
out.
just
It feels a little
left.
more
but
serious this
yeah,
time.
exactly, exactly. So like, I think it'll probably happen. Like it's actually going to happen, you know, within the next 6 months, something like that. But I don't know who wants to buy
would
'em?
want it? Because
Yeah.
in the end, the value of Hulu, I think, is the content
Yep.
and the relationships that they have with ABC and NBC, et cetera. And I don't know if those travel or not, but if they go away, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens there.
Do you watch Hulu? Do you use Hulu?
I subscribe to Hulu.
Yeah.
Hulu Plus. I subscribe to everything. We don't use Hulu Plus at home. I think I'm going to drop it. Do you? Do you subscribe?
No,
You watch Hulu at all?
Netflix almost exclusively.
Yeah. How about you?
I do actually. It was for Community. We
Yeah.
used to watch Community, and then what's the other one? The Modern Family.
Right. Well, but I subscribe to DirecTV too, so.
Yeah. Okay.
It's this world is just so. Well, because look, we subscribe DirecTV, Amazon Prime, Netflix, Hulu, and what do people who watch the show know this? They complain about it all the time. What do my wife and son do? They buy all their TV on frickin' iTunes. Let's move on to our next story. This Turkey and Twitter again, and in the news because what the PM of the Prime Minister of Turkey said. He said Twitter is a scourge. They want Twitter to come in and be in the country. Mark, does Twitter have any responsibility for these countries? Should they be doing anything here, or is their path the right one of like screw you?
Yeah, they typically take a hands-off stance, and I think that's sort of become their brand, and to do anything different would be potentially problematic. I think if they felt very strongly about going into China, as Google and Facebook have, and they took the approach of self-censorship, I think that would be potentially detrimental to their brand, that they would go into a country and say, and sort of kowtow based on whatever the government is looking for them to do. I think they're positioning themselves as we are the Switzerland of internet communication, and let anything, basically anything can fly as long as it's not encroaching on copyright or anything like that. And free speech is they're big proponents of that, and so cozying up to a government would not be in their best interest.
I agree with you. I mean, Mike, they were the one company that didn't come out in PRISM, the one big company that wasn't part of that. And I applaud that. I think it's a good thing. What do you think?
Twitter has come out. Twitter has looked good for a while, just in terms of they weren't necessarily complying with the government on PRISM stuff. B, they have this like all-star legal team there. There's this guy named Amac Alexander McGillivray, who's ex-Google, First Amendment lawyer dude, and they all really pride themselves on free speech. Like Twitter is the global town square communication tool, right? So, like you were saying, like for Twitter to sort of like to work to set up an office in this state, the state government, which is like essentially trying to control the messages that people can send to each other and broadcast, right, is so against what Twitter even stands for. They would definitely not do that.
Yeah, now Facebook hasn't set up an office there either. I mean, according to the story that I was reading in the BBC, they have an office, I think, in London, but they've worked closely with the Turkish government.
Yep.
Which kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies a little bit, right? I mean,
Facebook is...
I don't know, what's if you were heebie-jeebies, sorry.
No.
Where's my dinosaur picture? If you were Twitter, and I mean, just put yourself, Mark, in the shoes of Twitter and think, okay, I'm running Twitter, and it's a pretty big country. There's a bunch of them. Do you just say no? Do you just say, you know what? It's not my fault. Ban me if you want to, or do you think that you work behind the scenes a little bit on things?
I think every company is working behind the scenes a little bit, at least. And I would be surprised if Twitter isn't sending one of their deputies over to Turkey to meet with them and at least discuss things. But if the proposition is they have to hire in Turkey and potentially enter into an agreement to become a state-owned entity, I don't see them doing those sorts of things.
Yeah.
They haven't done it in China, where Sina and Tencent are eating their lunch. And I don't think they're going to do it for a country like Turkey. Yeah. China is the biggest internet market out there, and if they're not, creating those sorts of deals there, I don't see it happening in an Eastern European country.
Do you think it'll hurt them down the road?
I think it has the potential to help them. I think a lot of their values are similar to those of news organizations, which have historically been trusted, even though they're not all that trusted now.
But they are trustworthy, I will say that.
Good.
Most of them.
Thank God. We both appreciate hearing that, I think.
They are worthy of trust, yes.
And I think, creating this public persona that we are proponents for free speech, that Twitter is essentially saying, will make people more comfortable to use it for organizing protests and creating the next green revolution and Arab Spring. I think it's a smart strategy.
Yeah, I think so too. Look, let's talk about a bunch of stories really quickly, just because there was a lot going on and a lot I wanted to cover. And we were talking about this, Mike, you and I, when you walked in, and you said you thought the Instagram Twitter thing is still really interesting. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. What's the big thing? Is Twitter freaking out about Instagram now?
Yeah, totally.
Doing 15 seconds instead of 6 seconds? I mean, what's happening?
I think so Twitter, as you know, bought Vine, which is a video sharing application last year. And it's like they've had it out for, 5-6 months, something like that. They've tried to build an audience around there. They have like 13 million users, and they were feeling really good about it. But then, Facebook comes in, Instagram comes in, immediately just sort of has immediate scale. It flips the switch, and now there's 130 million people that can add video to their thing. So Twitter is like doing everything it can on all fronts, just be like, you need to use Vine. It's going to be screwing up the Instagram experience by sticking video in your feed, which I actually kind of agree with. It's very different now. So Twitter's worried, and there was a report out today, I don't know how much credence there is to it, but that Vine sharing is actually tanking since Instagram had turned on video. So, I don't know, they're worried. We'll see,
Yeah, Mark, what's your take on the whole Instagram, Twitter thing, on this whole video sharing short form thing?
I think it was a savvy move on Facebook's part to insert video and like Mike said, to open it up to that huge audience. As a user, it's not the most elegant experience, especially when they have autoplay turned on by default.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Flipping through, and then my phone just starts screaming with some like baby in the video.
15
or
seconds
crazy.
of that is definitely 15 seconds too much. So are either of these a medium for entertainment? And I bring that up because I put this up. There's this first soap opera exclusively on Vine.
Oh my God.
6-second episodes, and they're going to try and release one every week. It's called The Vines of Sauvignon Blanc. You can just see this first episode running around and around. And I watched a little bit of it. I could see sort of running it like sequentially. Like, I mean, if it all just ran sequentially, it's like 6 seconds and 6 seconds, 6 seconds. That would be like a fun 2 minutes. But the fact that they would do 6 seconds and then, I have to come back a week later and do 6 more seconds. I don't even remember what happened in that last 6 seconds. So I don't know. Is this a medium for entertainment?
I think it's a medium for advertising potentially at some point, and I think Vine and Instagram both have a potentially big opportunity to bring in advertisers and make some money that way. But I don't think these are great media for storytelling.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. It's gonna be funny. I think. By the way, really smart that they did it, right? Because it's a great
good gimmick.
It's a great gimmick, but we'll see where it goes. All right, let's talk about Sony. Let's talk about Myspace first. Myspace spent $20 million. They relaunched, 31 million uniques in 2 weeks. All right, Mike, are they cool again? Is Myspace the new cool place to go?
Nope.
No.
Do you want to go back to dinosaurs? No, it's a media blitz,
All right,
right?
I'm going back to dinosaurs. Forget the Vines. I'm going back to dinosaurs.
Pull it up, please.
Go ahead. Tell me.
No, it's immediate. You spend $20 million, you're basically buying a bunch of uniques in very short form.
right.
That is not sustainable.
It's not sustainable
at all. And at the same time, they have to I don't know. They got to do something. They bought this brand. They bought this sort of site. So they're trying to revamp it as a music site, but I don't know. I think it's just so passé. Then who wants to even still go there?
Mark, is there in MySpace? Could you bring it back?
No, I mean, potentially they could bring it back. Justin Timberlake's a very savvy businessman.
Surprisingly,
That was
so you know what?
sarcasm.
Hey, actually,
you can debate
surprisingly,
me on that one.
It's a lot better than a lot of other musicians that are out there. Let me tell you.
It's a good point. He's done a lot with his career.
I must say,
NSYNC
I am impressed with his business savvy. Not necessarily this, but anyway.
But the numbers, you look at the numbers, they're not all that impressive coming from the base that they had when they bought the company.
Yeah.
I did some reporting shortly after they bought the company. They were doing 29 million uniques a year ago. And now they're
really?
Now what? They're
they're
barely bumped it up.
31 million uniques after spending $20 million, right? All right, Sony and Disney. Mark, they're now streaming movies. They're still in theaters. They're streaming them to people. You can pay for it. Is it and apparently to try and thwart privacy. Is this the future of movies? I mean, is the whole theatrical thing dead now?
Let's see it here.
Yeah.
I like the option to, I still want to see blockbusters. I haven't seen it yet, but I want to see Superman in theaters. I want to see these big action movies, but some of the other movies that just come out, dramas, like I don't need to go to a theater and spend $17 and see them in the big screen.
Yeah, look, I'm going to see Monsters University tonight. My son wants to go, which is great. I'm totally psyched. I actually love Pixar movies. But I can watch that at home on my HDTV for
Easily.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Mike, is this the future or is this just South Korea only?
I don't think, I agree with you in that I don't think there will ever be a replacement for the theater experience. I don't call me artsy fartsy or whatever, but I just like going in there and enjoying it with a bunch of people. I also don't think that is necessary for every single film that's out there, right? So like it makes sense for a Man of Steel, it makes sense for whatever, the Star Treks of the world, but like you can watch some like indie art house flick or whatever at home and be fine with it. So I don't know. I mean, like obviously the studios are going to fight on this big time. You know, but
well, they fought a lot of other things. We'll see if they end up making money,
Yeah.
right? All right, this is my like, what story of the week? PayPal Galactic.
oh my God,
Mike, PayPal Galactic. What?
PR stunt. That's
Total
it.
gimmick.
You know,
Okay.
Square is like the darling because it's all pretty and fancy and slick or whatever. But like, who cares?
They had Buzz Aldrin there. That's a dinosaur. All right, somebody tell me why. Is there anything here more than PR? Than just like we're gonna say it because we can and want people to pay attention to us?
No.
Well, like you think about Richard Branson and Virgin, and like it's crazy, right? But like he's getting a lot of attention for like the space flight, you know, taking people up there, you know, sort of thing. So,
Right, there is space tourism,
Right.
and it's going to happen. It's
Right.
going to take a
you
long
can
time.
pay $100,000 to get on those flights. There's not a Disneyland or a Burger King up in space that you need to use space money for.
And look, if you're going to do it, it should be Bitcoin anyway, right?
obviously,
Bitcoin
that
is the
future
currency
payment.
of intergalactic excess.
Do you please tell me
There.
you own bitcoins?
I don't.
No, neither do I.
I was about to buy some, but then you don't have to buy Bitcoins. You got to take your money, and then you got to go to like some place that does money orders or something like that, or you got to give them your cash, and then a little while later you get something that says you have Bitcoins. Like, I would go on their site. I would buy Bitcoins with PayPal. I just wanted to buy like $100 worth. just for
Right.
fun.
I wanted to
Just
see
say,
what it's
I
like.
own a Bitcoin, but it turned out to be too much of a hassle. Okay, Mark, your turn. Motorola's new logo. Wait, I got to bring this thing up. It's so colorful.
If I were a branding specialist, which I'm not, I would say that they're keeping the legacy M there,
Yeah.
which Motorola has a long legacy of innovation.
Those are radio towers, by the way. Those M's
Really?
are radio towers. Yeah, look at them. They're radio towers.
I never knew that.
The very early day, they are the radio company.
That's totally. That makes
Very
sense
cool.
now. Everything makes sense.
And the colors are because Google uses colors.
Right. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Honestly, it's a fancy new update, but it says Google, but it doesn't scream Google. I guess.
Yeah.
Let's see some products though. It's
tell me
been
about it.
over a year, right?
Are they almost dead or what?
The X phone is coming soon.
at some point?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Wait for it.
Yeah. We'll see.
All right, last story, and Mike, we're going to go back over to you.
All right.
Facebook's doing chat rooms like AOL. Come on, everything old is new again.
They have tried. They want to tie all their messaging together too. This is the other thing. I think it has something to do with their messenger service, which is like you can send messages, but it also turns into a chat thing.
Yeah, well, it's like I am. It's like email becomes I am.
Right.
And
So
now
like
it's
Google has done
chat.
Hangouts, right,
Yeah.
which is like group chat. You can have all these people that you may or may not be friends with on Google Plus, or if you use Google Plus. But like, Facebook saw that it was a cool thing. It's just no one is on Google Plus using it, so they're like, hey, we can rip that off. We can do that.
Yeah, are you ready to do some chatting on Facebook?
I know.
No, I'm not.
Quite frankly, no. Do you think it's a dumb idea? Do you think it's a smart idea? Do you think it's just Facebook has just more developers than sense.
Chat rooms, I don't think is a good idea, and I think positioning themselves closer to AOL, like you said, is not. I mean, this has been a criticism of Facebook for a long time, that they view the world in a very AOL-centric way, where it's our walled garden. We're going to offer you everything you need. We're going to do, chat, and we're going to do news and stay within our walls. That didn't work out for AOL, and if I were a Facebook shareholder, I would be a little concerned about mimicking a company that crashed and burned 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's like everything old is new again, right? It's very interesting. I don't know. I don't think. Wait a minute. I'm gonna disagree here. People get on Facebook, they're hanging with their friends. They're seeing what their friends are up to. If 3 or 4 people, chances are, a couple of your friends are on Facebook. And say, they're running that thing. When they're updating on the right-hand side, a couple of people are on Facebook. Why shouldn't you be able to hang out and chat, right?
Well, is this group chat or is this a chat room with strangers? That was the
that's
sense
a good
that
question.
I got from it.
What is it,
They already do group chat.
Okay, you're right. You're right. If chat room with strangers, then it gets a little creepy. Yeah.
I don't want to talk to
It's always
strangers
been
on it.
creepy.
Well, you're right. Facebook has always been creepy. All right. With that, that is all the time that we have left. Thank you very much. Mark Milian, thank you for joining us. Bloomberg, Mike Isaac from All Things D. If you want to talk about some of the stories that we talked about, or talk about dinosaurs or whatever, you go down in the comments. We'll be there. And until then, until next time, you've been watching Download Us.